Welcome to Mind Body Monday, and thank you all for joining me. Well done, everybody. Monday night, and there are 1,000 things plus you can be doing with your time on a Monday evening. And I just want to salute each one of you for showing up for yourself, because this is how we advance health and well-being, by learning together, by committing to a pathway of personal health and well-being. As they say, Jerusalem wasn't built in a day, and health is not built in a day. It requires a dedication, a commitment, a pathway, a strategy, and part of that is showing up for yourself in the way you have. So welcome. If you are new, I want to give you a special welcome to Mind Body Monday. For those of you who are new, my name is Avraham Gundle. I'm the founder and director for the Center for Integrated Medicine. And over the last 30 years in private practice, I've been privileged to help many people recover from a whole host of health conditions, be it gut issues, which is my specific focus, autoimmune issues, diabetes, skin conditions, to name a few. And Mind Body Monday is born out of my clinical experience, my commitment to empowering each one of you to show up for yourself, to advance your health and well-being one step at a time. And last month was the first year birthday of Mind Body Monday. So as a birthday gift, I wanted to change things up a little bit. Instead of taking a deep dive in one topic relating to health, I've decided to open up the mics and have a Q&A. And I've asked anybody who would like to submit questions, and I have a ton of questions here. So thank you to each one of you. If you had an opportunity to email or WhatsApp your questions, there's the 1440 Thrive WhatsApp group. If you're not on that, you have an opportunity to join. I put that link in the chat, and a couple of times a week I post some strategies and thoughts about health and well-being, mind, body, and spirit. So that's another way to get health in your pocket and into your daily routine. So these questions are born out of Mind Body Monday from you. So thank you very much. And if questions come up during the session, just post them in the chat. If there's time, I'll try and relate to them. If not, I can send out an email. And the advantage of being here live is obviously you get to ask your questions as well. So I do want to make some time towards the end for any questions that you may have that you want to ask, even if you submitted one or something that's come up as a result of today. So a big welcome to you all. I'm seeing some new faces joining, so I'm really happy to have you all. Let's jump in. I'm literally going to read through these questions. They're quite varied. And although there are a couple of themes here, I'm just going to read through the questions, give you a sort of aerial view answer with hopefully some take-homes. And even though a question may not necessarily pertain to your health challenge, my experience is that you will be able to hopefully still have some take-home value from the approach, from the answers that come out from this. So as I'm reading through the questions and responding, if there are any thoughts that you want to raise or whatnot, you can put them in the chat, and I'll open the mic towards the end and we can dive in. Okay, let's get started. I see Rivka is in the process of joining, so welcome, Rivka. Super. Let's start off. And I guess the first few that had came in into my email was really relating to the gut, because the last few sessions have been on gut health. So, so those are the ones relating to gut health. Okay. So Shoshana's just joined us as well. Welcome, Shoshana. Okay, super duper. Let's get started. The first question relates to, actually, yeah, this is a three-part question I see. It relates to constipation. I have 5 family members ranging from 18 months to 14 years who lead healthy lifestyles, eat only eating whole wheat, drinking plenty of water, and suffer from constipation. What could be causing it? Okay, there are 3 along the theme. So let me just read 3. I've been dealing with constipation for years now, and I'm so tired of it. It's making me cranky, bloated, and it's messing with my appetite. A Mind Body Monday follower recently wrote, I feel like I'm doing everything right, but I can't relieve myself. Help. And then the last question here is, I can't budge my long-term constipation. I've tried everything from hydration to eating more fiber. Nothing helps. It's really depressing me. What can I do? So firstly, thank you for writing in on this somewhat sensitive topic. And it's really important just to get it out there in the open, the elephant in the room. And this way we'll be able to move forward. So let me sort of address this globally, but I want to just focus more specifically on the first question with the 5 family members who lead a healthy lifestyle, eating whole wheat, drinking plenty of water, and suffer from constipation. So just a comment, here's a mother who's committed to her family health. Like, that just gets kudos right there. We all are leading very, very busy lives, and it's so easy just to throw some pasta in the pot or pull out some Tivol schnitzels or something like that. And here's a mother who's committed to health for her family, but you're running into some challenges. So well done for your commitment in trying to make it work. Let's just, let me unpack some of this. She writes here, only eating whole wheat. Now, this is an important point. Firstly, whole grains are far superior than processed grains in general. This is because the fiber, the germ, the oils, the nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin E are in that whole fiber product, the whole food. So you do want to be eating a whole grain if that's what you're eating. That being said, wheat contains gluten. And I have seen that with sensitive digestions, that gluten can definitely contribute towards constipation. So the wheat, the gluten-containing grains are wheat, barley, oats, if there's cross-contamination, rye, and spelt, the 5 grains. And it's definitely better to use, in my opinion, a spelt grain, a whole grain spelt, or possibly rye than wheat if there's constipation. But that being said, it may be better just to take a break from gluten and eat foods like grains like quinoa, which is really high in protein, easy to digest, a wonderful grain, or buckwheat, which is also a complete protein, and that does not contain gluten. So that's a small tweak you may want to consider. Drinking plenty of water. I asked a patient of mine, I'm very focused on metrics because I believe what you don't measure, you cannot manage. So when I asked a patient of mine, how much water are you drinking? Oh, plenty. Well, how much specifically? Oh, tons. And I said, wonderful. And how much are you drinking? Well, at least a cup a day. So everybody has their own perspective of how much plenty is, how much lots is, how much tons are. And it's very important to get really specific because we're dealing with biochemistry. And the rule of thumb for hydration I've been teaching is about an ounce or half an ounce per pound of body weight. So work out how much you weigh in pounds, and half your weight in ounces is about the amount of water you should be drinking. So approximately, if we convert quickly to kilograms, someone who's 65 kilograms would be drinking approximately 2 to 2.5 liters a day. So it's really very specific. The cells need hydration, the blood needs liquid, the lymphatics need liquid, the colon needs liquid. It's a sewage system. If the water packs up in a city's sewage system, it's trouble. So I would recommend to this mom for now, consider switching whole wheat to something else. And if the kids don't like it, maybe moving to spelt, they may not know the difference. And if that doesn't ease things up, then take a break for a little bit with gluten, and then really being conscious on how much water to drink. I personally have a liter bottle, and I get through two to 2.5 of these minimum a day. I have one of these at the office, one of these at home, one of these in my home study where I am right now, and it's just in arm's reach of my mouth. That being said, I want to just address some of these other constipation questions I asked. Is that there is such a thing called a sluggish bowel, and people, it could run in families that this family just has a sluggish bowel. Check with parents, check with grandparents. There could be some issue there. And that being the case, then it's always a good idea to look for other strategies like self-massage, like making sure you're having the right amount of water. When I mean self-massage, I mean on the colon, the specific techniques to help move things through. There's magnesium oxide, an inexpensive supplement that helps with peristalsis. That's the movement of the colon. So there are lots of easy, non-invasive, safe strategies to help a sluggish bowel. So thank you very much for that question. Let me move on to the next question that came in today. See, this is a three-part. This is 3 separate questions. Let's go in. This one has to do with bloating. This person writes in, I'm pretty sure I have food intolerances. I can even wake up feeling bloated. I do have a very serious reflux that I will need surgery for, we put that in parentheses. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear more, please. Okay. So let me address this question. Okay, I see there's 3 on this particular page. Let me just address this first question. Today, we are in the instant gratification generation, and it's much easier per se to look for a quick fix with quick medication to handle something, or even in this case, surgery. But this person writes in to say he's got a serious reflux and he may need surgery for that, but he has food intolerances. So in my experience, it's totally possible to cure, 100% cure acid reflux. There's a reason for that. And I'll get into this a little bit later about functional medicine. But for now, it's about treating the root cause of the issue. So the person who wrote in this question, it's a wonderful question. I'll invite you. You can keep the surgery on the horizon if you want. But I would recommend to really identify which foods there is a sensitivity to, an allergy to, an intolerance to, etc. I gave a Mind Body Monday 2 weeks ago on food allergies and sensitivities. I also gave one a few weeks ago on reflux. So I'd encourage you to go to my YouTube channel or the Facebook group and watch those replays, because you absolutely could heal this. In fact, about 10 years ago, I had a high-tech person in high-tech, high stress from Tel Aviv come to see me, who had 15 years of reflux. His office was his car, eating on the run, drinking coffee, biscuits and cakes in his car, running from meeting to meeting, north, south of Israel, traveling up and down. And within about 6 weeks, his reflux was solved. I took a radical approach because he was fed up and he wanted radical answers, because it was just getting in the way of his life and his career. One of the things I did with him was fasting. Part of my training in naturopathic medicine was doing fasting. That's pure water fasting and no food fasting as well. And I did this program with him. I walked him through it. We did it together, and we kicked the reflux by resetting his gut. I do not recommend any of you do this on your own without a healthcare practitioner. But what I am emphasizing, that a cure is possible, doesn't always mean radical interventions. Some of the interventions could be really simple and easy, like taking out some food groups that may be bothering your gut. So check out my replay on reflux. Okay. The next question is, how do I eat healthy when looking at broccoli makes me bloated and I'm in real pain after trying beans? So I think let's start with a definition of healthy food. There's a global definition of healthy food, which is unprocessed as much as possible, organic wherever possible, whole foods wherever possible. Obviously must be appealing and delicious, but at the same time, they must work for you. So if they're foods that don't work for you, then they, even though your next door neighbor could be enjoying them and thriving on them, if they don't sit well with you, then they're not healthy for you in that given moment or in that period of time until things turn around, or maybe forever. I don't know. But the first thing is trust your intuition, trust your sense. If you're looking at a food group or a food and you feel put off by it or feel nausea, it doesn't make you feel good. In fact, some of you could try this experiment. You can ask yourself by looking at a food, how will this make me feel before you've actually eaten it? If you look at food or think about your pasta or your broccoli or whatever, how will this make you feel once you've eaten it? And if you just tune in to yourself with practice, you may get an answer like, good for the moment, or like, or no, that will give me heartburn, or no, that will give me gas, or whatever it happens to be, or no, that actually feels right. So engaging with your mind body, which is an incredibly wise, intelligent system, you'll be able to get some intelligent answers if you ask in an open way. So if broccoli doesn't makes you bloated and beans don't work for you, skip them. Just don't eat those foods. Okay, I've made a real effort to eat healthy foods like greens and pulses, but my symptoms only get worse. So I'd say straight off the bat, this is important, especially when you're making food changes. Often things can get worse before they get better. Healing is not a linear graph. Healing is got lots of ups and downs like this, but over time the trajectory is one of getting better. But in the micro, if you zoom in, there's a lot of ups and downs. So I don't know in what space this person, the context this question is asked, but if you're changing your diet over, just give your gut a while to get used to more fiber, or get used to prebiotics or postbiotics, or more cultured vegetables, or drinking more water. There will be changes. And that's important just to bear that in mind. That being said, let's just go back to basics and be mindful of not only what you're eating, but how you're eating. Are you stressed out? Are you eating in a rush? Do you take time to really chew your food? Do you look at your food and notice if you're salivating and look at all the colors, express gratitude? There are a lot of people, millions of people in the world that don't have the quality of food and the ease of food that we are privileged to have. All these feelings of gratitude really help the digestive process as well. So it's not only what you eat, but are you eating on the run, eating in your car, snacking as you move along, or sitting down and eating with gratitude, intention, and chewing your food. Two more points I'll say on this last question about eating healthy foods, but symptoms like greens and pulses, but the symptoms are getting worse. Another definition of healthy food I mentioned is that there is a food group called FODMAP, and I spoke about those last week in Mind Body Monday. These are healthy foods that have certain chemical structures that bother sensitive guts, people with IBS or colitis. So even though the foods on paper may be healthy, but in sensitive individuals, this group of foods are no good. So they're not healthy for that person. And then always to look and address the underlying issues. So if you're eating healthy and you're getting worse, there could be something else going on, and a good idea to check that out. Okay, let's move on to the next couple of questions. And again, feel free to ask questions, post questions in the chat if something comes up, or write them down, and then I'll open the mic later on to give you that opportunity as well. So this question comes in from a lady who says, when used together in one dish, why do some permitted foods, seasonings included, seem to cause a feeling of temporary upper abdominal inflammation or nausea or irritated bowels for the day? I happen to know who this particular person is who wrote in. So my response, I don't know if she's here today, but my response is that there's a good thing to know. The more sensitive your gut is, or if you've had a late night or a series of late nights, or if you're going under stress, if you're going through a stressful patch, then it's always a good idea to simplify your meals. Eat simple foods, pretty much like what we'd give a baby. We don't give a baby 10 things on a plate. It's simple, it would be mashed up vegetables, or it will be just, fruit compote, an apple, stewed apple, something very simple. So the more distressed the gut is, the simpler the foods need to be. So that's the recommendation I'd make. So even though individual foods would be fine, but when you put them together, the synergy doesn't work. So therefore, pull back, use individual foods. And she mentions here seasonings. I would definitely be aware of pungent seasonings, definitely, heating spices like cayenne, or sweet and sour sauces. Sometimes most of them contain MSG and sugars. Spices, or sometimes even garlic could be problematic. So pull back, keep foods very, very simple. And think what you'd feed a baby. And if that would work for a baby, then that would work for you during a sensitive time. Okay, let's move on to this question. And I get this a lot. Hi, Dr. Gundle. I listen to your class and I'm often so inspired to make healthy changes for me and my family. But then I get to the supermarket and, well, things are just so expensive. How could you compare the cost of a bag of broccoli to a bag of pasta? Okay, so we really have to look at what's called expensive. I'm reminded of a quote that I like to mention. A healthy person has 1,000 dreams. A sick person has one. So I don't see healthcare as an expense. I see it as the best investment I could possibly make in my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and that of my family and spouse, etc. So I think it's important just to sort of reorientate the mind. And let's also be practical that, yes, broccoli, especially where we live in these parts of the world, it can be expensive. It's not so easy to find fresh, and frozen is another option. But there are many other basic, wholesome, healthy veggies that are less expensive, like string beans, or like zucchini, or like sweet potatoes, or like kohlrabi, or like cabbage, or there's so many amazing vegetables. Just to buy the vegetables, cut them up, put them on a baking dish with a little bit of olive oil, some sweet paprika, a little bit of fresh sea salt, and you're done. Bake them. And you've got a delicious meal. Also put in there some onions and garlic. These are easy to digest, inexpensive, very nourishing foods. And most people can handle them in their gut. And if you can't, then just modify them. Or the other thing is steam vegetables, another way to have those. But that's more into method. But you don't have to buy the most expensive things. So the first thing is to recognize that this is an investment in your long-term healthcare, and just consider the cost of feeling poorly, physically and emotionally. How will that affect your life? Missing work, less productivity, less energy. Expensive doesn't only show up in the purse, it shows up in our health and well-being. And over the long term, the best investment you can make is in yourself now for the long term, and it will save you so much time, energy, effort, and money. In fact, I'm just working with a patient right now who's in her mid-60s, and she's been all her life a dedicated, loyal teacher, totally there 100% for her students. And over the last year and a half, she's suffered a health crisis, and we're working together to pull her out. And one of the things she said is she never made time for herself. She was totally there, committed for her students, all hours of the day and night, and a fantastic teacher. But her needs, her health needs, didn't even feature on the totem pole, wasn't even on the bottom of it, wasn't even there. And she's taken a sabbatical this year to get her health in order. And it's the first time in her life she's actually prioritized herself. And she could have taught half-time, we discussed that. But I said, you know, if you're able to make this a full-time focus of yours to get yourself back on track so you're able to give back, then that would be the right thing to do. And that's what she's done. So the invitation here, and that's also why I'm ending every Mind Body Monday with the slogan that Mind Body Monday is all about self-care being the heart of healthcare. All you need to do is take one small step in the direction of health, body, mind, and spirit health. And this is what this culture is about. It's not egocentric. It's not self-centered. It's that proverbial analogy of the mother on the plane with her infant, and there's a drop in cabin pressure. The mother takes her oxygen first, because through saving the mom, she can save the family and her baby and the family. So this is the environment we're looking at. So eating healthy is not expensive. It's the best investment you can make. But within that, you can make sensible budgetary choices. Okay. Oh, I have a complex question here about diabetes. I'm going to hold that to the end if I have more time. Let's look at this question. Okay. This is a question I get a lot in my clinic. And I really love this question because it underlies so much of my work. Hi, Dr. Gundle. I'm exhausted all the time. My blood work just came back and all is totally normal. Put that in inverted commas. I rest all the time. I have absolutely no energy. It's depressing. What can I do? What do you recommend? Okay. Let me start with some basic definitions. And the story I mentioned to you about my previous patient, the teacher, she wrote back on Mind Body Monday last week, how our eyes have been opened by this functional medicine and integrated medicine approach. Let me read for you a definition of functional medicine. Functional medicine determines how and why illness occurs and restores health by addressing the root causes of disease for each individual. The functional medicine model, as a medical model, is an individualized, patient-centered, science-based approach that empowers patients and practitioners to work together as a team to address the underlying causes of disease and promote optimal wellness. That's quite a mouthful, but it's really important to get the nuances of this definition. It's individualized. That means I could see 5 people with IBS or 5 people with depression or 5 people with eczema and treat them all differently. Because we are all unique. We have all unique souls, all unique thumbprints. And even though we share biochemistry, we respond and react very differently to different interventions. And this functional medicine approach is so important because it's individualized, it's patient-centered, it's science-backed, and it's empowering for you as individuals to take the next step to advance your health and well-being. And it brings the doctor and the patient together as a team. And I don't know if any of you know my favorite acronym. I didn't make it up. I don't recall where I first heard it, but I love it and I use it all the time. The acronym team is an acronym, and it stands for Together, Everybody Achieves More. And this is what healing is all about. It's not about just pushing pills, but not understanding what is really going on. Now, let's compare another medical model called Western medicine. And please hear me, I'm not knocking anything here at all. We are privileged to have a special needs child who using the best of functional medicine to manage and the best of Western medicine to manage. I have a deep, deep respect for both worlds, but I want you to understand the model here. Western medicine is a system in which medical doctors and other healthcare professionals treat symptoms and disease using drugs, radiation, and surgery. That is the Western medical model. There's no talk about individualized, patient-centered, empowering patients at all. So it's important to get that these two different models must coexist and work together. And more doctors are recognizing the strengths and weakness of traditional medicine and expanding their learning, their practice. In fact, recently in my neighborhood, one of the local doctors who we share a lot of patients together, he reached out to me and said, you know, Avraham, there are a lot of patients I'm seeing with these sorts of conditions. What do you think is my next step to trying to help them? So firstly, I was very humbled by his honest display of the gap in medical schooling. And I made a recommendation for him to study functional medicine and gave him some courses online to do and get a high-end Harvard-trained functional medicine or Harvard-backed functional medicine training. Okay, so that's that piece on sort of normal blood work and understanding the approach. I also want to share with you an interesting his piece of historical fact. The Chinese emperor back 2,000 years ago or so had many doctors that used to guard his health. These doctors were paid handsomely to keep the emperor healthy. As soon as the emperor got sick, the doctors were not paid anymore. And they had something really right. They understood that it takes so much more wisdom to guard health, to nurture health, to promote health and vitality in body, mind, emotion, and soul, than it does to return health once it's lost. So he endorsed that by paying them royally to keep him healthy and stopping all payment when he got sick because they failed in their mission. So functional medicine is all about promoting lifestyle choices, adequate exercise and sleep and nutrient-dense eating and preventative illness. In fact, I get a lot of patients coming to me and saying, you know, they're borderline or they're pre-diabetic or their blood pressure is slightly raised or their cholesterol is slightly raised. And the doctor said, you know, we'll come back, we'll monitor it, you know, we'll watch it and come back in 3 months' time. But between you and me, that's just really a euphemism for saying I've got no idea how to help you until you have a pathology, till you have a disease, and then I'll give you medication for the rest of your life. Now, that could be life-saving for some people, and that's fine for some people. However, those patients who are coming to myself are seeking more. They don't want to, you know, monitor it or let's watch it, because that's not proactive. Proactive is, goodness, the glucose is raised, the blood pressure is raised, or whatever the issue is. Let's take proactive steps starting today to reverse it. And diabetes or diabetes type 2 is 100% reversible, 100%, if damage hasn't already been done to the kidneys, to the optic nerve, etc. So it's so important to know that euphemisms like let's watch it, let's monitor it, it sounds all very responsible, but it's not proactive and it's not empowering, and it's just putting the kettle back on the boil until there's frank pathology, and then we can address it with medication. So coming back to this simple question about I'm exhausted all the time, my blood work is normal. So firstly, when I get these patients, I say, please send me your blood tests, because I look at blood tests very differently to the conventional approach. I also look for trends. I ask if there's a history, and give me your history. Let me see the patterns of your renal function. Let me see the patterns of cortisol. Let me see the history of your glucose levels. Let me see what your HbA1c has been over the last 6 years. So all this way I can look at trends. I'm not just looking at a snapshot in time. I'm looking at an entire context. And then you can see disease process has been in the making over the last several months or years. That reminds me, just this, let me just read something to you. I got an email just before we started. Let me give you an introduction. 10 days ago, a 50, how old is she? 56 maybe, I think. A 56-year-old came to see me really in good health, used to walk around Ramat Beit Shemesh really every day, is vibrant and energetic. She came to see me because she has a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. And she came in, she sat down and says, listen, Dr. Avraham, I just want to be frank with you. I don't know anything about what you do. I'm very critical of anything outside the Western model. And I'm very suspicious of this, but truth is I'm desperate. I said, well, thank you. I love critics. I love desperation. Everything's here. We can work it through. Tell me what's going on. Well, she had a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis because she couldn't walk across the salon, never mind walking around Ramat Beit Shemesh, with tremendous, tremendous agony. And her doctor had given her a methotrexate, which is a very potent medication for this sort of inflammatory joint disorder. And I think shortly thereafter, she broke out in hives all over her body. The doctor said, stop here, take this Plaquenil, take another medication. She did a quick Google search and read all the side effects. And she said, no, but she didn't know what to do. So fortunately, she had a friend who had come to me, and I was happy to be able to help her. So she came in and she sat down, and we had a frank discussion about, our approach. Yesterday, so I put her onto a healing program. I'm not going to go into the whole case study. Maybe I'll do that another Mind Body Monday. But she just sent me an email yesterday. Hi, Dr. Gundle. I had to take a blood test today for something. She didn't say what. And they checked my CRP. CRP is C-reactive protein. It's one of the inflammatory markers that are raised during any inflammation in the body. And it is 57.5. And she put I don't know if you can see, but 10 exclamation marks, down from 74 in 10 days. This is remarkable. Yay, she says, just thought I'd share the news. All the best. And she signed off. What I'm saying is here, she was way out of her comfort zone. And I deeply respect that. She came for help because she was desperate. And she just took on board everything I said, dotted the I's, crossed the T's, and did everything. I said to her, here's a follow-up blood test. You will do this in 3 months' time. Just put on your blinkers, do this program. I called her for a couple of days, the first couple of days, to see how she's doing and troubleshoot any questions. In the first 3 months, her program was what I'm going to call a weed, seed, and feed. The first 3 months is getting rid of all the toxins, feeding her system, and putting back good nutrients. So she's in the first literally 10 days of her detox program. And her CRP, this inflammatory mark, has come down significantly. The only medication that will do that artificially is prednisone steroid. And my experience is, in fact, I'm treating someone now in the UK who's got a similar condition, who's on steroids, but can't get off them because every time it goes lower, his symptoms flare up again. If she were to take steroids, the inflammation markers would come down, but will jump up once again because they wouldn't be treating the root cause of the issue. After spending over an hour and a half with her, I understood where the root cause of her rheumatoid arthritis was coming from. We addressed and are addressing the root cause. She's on no medication, no supplements, no vitamins, no herbs, no nothing, just diet, nutrition, cleaning her blood, her lymphatics. She called me up 3 days ago before this one. She sent me this email to say, you know, just something that's really bothering me. Will there be permanent joint damage? So I said to her, if you've caught this early enough, all the while the x-rays show healthy joint structure, even though there's inflammation around the synovial membranes and there's edema, etc., you can reverse all of that and spare any joint damage. But important that in the interim time, you just take it easy on your feet, be moderately active, and I guided through her program. But what I'm saying is that this is the best of functional medicine. And I haven't even built her rest of her program up. So, you know, please God, I'm very positive that she's going to reverse these inflammatory markers completely, reverse condition, and be better than she was before, which is what it's all about. She'll be wiser, she'll be smarter, she'll be making better lifestyle choices, better nutritional choices. But if you're just giving her medicine, and even if the medicine worked without side effects, she's no wiser. And, you know, it will catch up with her. That's just how it works. You know, imagine jumping into your car with a family on a family holiday, and you're going off to a lovely holiday, and the orange light comes on the dashboard to say, you know, your oil's low or your water's low or whatever, and there's a little beep going on and the light's flashing. You can just cover that over. You know, here's a tissue. You can just cover it over the dashboard and you sort it. Or you just knock out the light and you sort it until the car, you know, just the engine stops working because it's overheated or whatever. That is what medication will do. It will suppress the symptoms. And as important as they have a place, it's not always the answer for long-term health. Okay, so that was a long answer to a short question, but I felt it would just give you an opportunity to sort of lift up the hood of what's really going on between, you know, normal blood tests but feeling lousy. There's so much going on, so much that can be done to reverse that completely. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, someone's written into me here. When you say that my immune system is in my gut, what does that mean in everyday language? Okay, so let's just start quickly with a definition. That what is the immune system? The immune system is really a complex interplay between organs and cells and proteins that both defend the body and protect the body, defend from foreign pathogens, viruses, bacteria, fungi, things like that, and protect the body as well, protect the body's own cells, etc. So the immune system also remembers every microbe or every offender that it ever was exposed to. So if it gets exposed to again, it will be more primed to deal with that in the most efficient way. Now, what does it mean that my immune system is in the gut? Well, about 70 to 80% of our lymphatic tissues and the cells responsible for our immune system lie in the gut, in the microbiome, in the epithelial layer of our gut, in the villi, in the local mucosa, because the gut is really the outside world, even though it's inside our body. But until the food has gone through the intestines, it's still in the outside world. It hasn't gone into our blood. Once it goes into our blood, it becomes part of us. So inside our body has a definition of the outside world if it's inside the colon, and therefore the surveillance is high to keep that air, to keep our immune system strong and defend it against viruses and bacteria and microbes and yeasts and all those things that are not healthy for us, or food allergens or whatever it happens to be. So that's what I mean. 70 to 80% of that immune response and the information about our immune system is in our gut, because the gut is part of the outside world. Just as our skin protects the physical body from the outside world, the gut on the inside protects us from the inside until that food is absorbed, broken down properly, and undergone surveillance from the immune system that it's not something that will harm us. Okay, we're coming to the end, and then I'll open the mics if you have any questions. There's two more questions to come. Let me go through this one. This I get quite a bit. I'm curious to hear your opinion on dairy products. I specifically notice certain symptoms such as bloating, etc. when I have it, and I've heard many other reasons for not eating it. It's not good for us. I love dairy. Kids love dairy. What do you say? I'm asking, since I'm not sure what approach I should take with my children, what would be the right balance? Rivka. Okay, so Rivka asked a great question about dairy. Just sort of a couple of general things. My experience is, again, please check out all of what you're hearing with your healthcare practitioner before taking actionable steps, because these are global questions, and this is to the public, and I can't tweet via Zoom. It doesn't work that way. I can just educate and inform from my own experience. So make sure you check. You continue your learning and training with a healthcare practitioner. So, firstly, my experience is anyone with an autoimmune condition or a gut issue, my experience is should best avoid dairy products. Now, it's not necessarily for life, but one of the reasons for that is that dairy products today are not the dairy products of yesteryear, contrary to popular belief. Dairy products have been homogenized. They've been pasteurized. They generally can have tested levels of hormones and pesticides and antibiotic residues because of the way farming is done today. Homogenization breaks up the fat in the milk is spun, and through that, the fat cells of the milk are made very, 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 very small, and therefore they can pass through the gut lining. We spoke about the tight junctions within the intestinal villi a few weeks ago in Mind Body Monday. Check that replay out. But these fat cells would normally be, the body would defend against it, but because they're like a spy plane that goes beneath the radar of the enemy. So it goes in undetected. So to the milk, the way it's processed, some of the molecules of fat cells can go into the immune system unprocessed and trigger alarm bells when it needn't do that. So also in the winter, I generally advise patients, especially with kids who tend to be mucousy, if they have any ENT issues or mucus nose, throat, etc., to cut back, avoid dairy, because generally speaking, at least from Chinese medicine perspective, dairy is a cold, damp food, and winter tends to be colder and damper. And these two elements coming together will create more of a mucus situation in the body, and that can just cause congestion in the lungs and in the ENT area, and not to mention bother the gut. So it's a good thing to avoid or limit. There's lots of other choices. There's almond milk, there's oat milk, there's soya milk, there's rice milk, or rice liquids. They should really be called milk. For calcium sources, which is important to bear in mind, There's tahina, which is very, very rich in calcium and easily to be absorbed. Another reason to eat quinoa and buckwheat and green vegetables, also rich in calcium. So it's quite possible to get your full calcium allowance, not from dairy. And I'll just say, by the way, an easy way, what we do in our home to make your own almond milk is to buy almond butter, which is basically pure butter of almonds. You take a tablespoon of that in anywhere between a cup to 3 or 4 cups, depending on how much you want to dilute it, of water. And you just zhuzh it up with a blender, add in some little pinch of sea salt if you want, or some date syrup if you want to sweeten it up, or some cinnamon if you want. And you've got a very healthy, preservative-free almond milk that's delicious for kids to have and yourself to have, and you can just make it within minutes. So that's my approach to dairy. I see I've gone well over my time. Here's another question. Maybe I'll just, you know what, I'm going to pause this last question. It's quite involved. It's about pre-diabetes. And I see the time is late, and I also want to take questions from you. So let me just, firstly, I want to thank each one of you for making time for yourself, for showing up to Mind Body Monday. And I'm grateful to you because it's because of you that I'm here. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And so I'm just grateful that you've given me this opportunity to share with you some of these questions and answers. And thank you to each one of you who have written in. Okay, so let me take a couple of questions. You can either raise a physical hand or a digital hand. I see Ruchama's asked, and I see Yvonne, you got your hand up. Let me take Ruchama. You'll say your name, please, and where you zooming in from, and then your question. And then Yvonne, I'll come to you afterwards. Okay, Ruchama, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, okay. I think that, first of all, thank you so much. The session is so informative, and thanks for giving the opportunity to ask personal questions. So I think it was my question that was the last question. So I was wondering if perhaps maybe you'll be able to answer a part of it. I'm just wondering, when going off of sugar, right? Or maybe I'll put it this way, is it better to go off sugar completely as to avoid having to be in a situation where one is constantly feeling cravings for sugar? Or is moderation better, like this, you avoid feeling deprived? Which is the better approach, and well, that's most effective?
Thank you for your question, Ruchama. Where are you? You are in?
I'm from New York.
New York. Okay. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. And thank you for your question. And I like what you did also. You presented me a beautiful question. It's kind of a deep dive, but you've chunked it. It's not all or nothing, which is another mindset of what I'm sharing here. We're taking a little piece of your question, and I think this will apply to others as well. Ruchama, my experience, I in general in my practice take a moderate approach. Let me explain. Different people require different approaches. There's not necessarily one approach for each person. And I'll just preface this with a quick story. Several years ago, I saw a 75-year-old woman who hobbled into my practice on 2 walking sticks. She was scheduled for a bilateral hip replacement because of arthritic changes. She was in tremendous pain, and she wanted to know what she could do in the meantime before the surgery. I went through some suggestions, and because of her age and situation, I said, you know, these are the gradual changes I suggest you make. This is week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Come back in week 4, and we're going to review. She came back on week 4, and she was absolutely irate. She kept pointing one walking stick in my direction, and I said, you know, what are you so upset about? She said, you know, Dr. Gundle, you wanted me to suffer for 4 weeks. So I said, what do you mean? She said, you wanted me to make all these gradual changes. You know what? I went home the next day and I did it all. And the truth is, she needed hip surgery, but only on one hip. She never needed the other side. And she came into my clinic that day with 1 walking stick instead of 2. So I misjudged her, given her age, given her personality and gradual changes. And she did she went cold turkey on everything that she was doing. It wasn't supporting joint health and her hips. And she just turned everything over. And so, Ruchama, I don't know the right way for you. All I can tell you from my experience, and I think this is important to know, food today is engineered to ping our brain, to stimulate the same neurotransmitters in our brain that they're called opioid receptors that where cocaine and heroin are also stimulate. Food is designed to be addictive, to make us want more in the moment. And sugar is just one of those things that just gives us such a good feel good, such a buzz, that it's an addiction, and it needs to be handled with the compassion and approach that any other addiction needs. And this patient of mine, by the way, who had rheumatoid arthritis, she was a sugar junkie. She could not contemplate life without sugar. She went cold turkey. I guided her through it. I spoke about how to manage it and, tweaks and all that. She went cold turkey. Wasn't easy initially, the first 36 to 48 hours, but she did it. The tongue, our taste buds are replaced every 2 to 3 weeks, about every 21 days. So biochemically, we can just reduce it gradually. Except for Shabbos, I don't have sugar in my diet. And when I have a fruit or a vegetable, it's like so delicious. It's overwhelmingly yummy. But because people are so overstimulated with sugar and sugary things, that we lose taste of good old farm fresh food. So you're asking me, should you go cold turkey or should you graduate it? So no harm will be done. If a person were to go cold turkey, it's just a little bit harder. My approach, as I said, is moderate. I'd rather a person take gradual steps, knowing that that's the goal. Instead of having 3 cups of, I'm giving an example which comes from my practice, 3 cups of 3 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, have 2 or 2.5. And baby step it down over 3 weeks, over a month. But sugar is a drug. Sugar is an addiction. Sugar is one of the most pro-inflammatory substances for the body, i.e. it causes inflammation in the body. It compromises the immune system. Tests were done where blood was drawn, sugar was taken, blood was drawn again, and there was a drop in activity in T4 lymphocytes, which is part of the immune system's response. There's nothing good to say about it at all, except if you have shares in food companies. If you want to guard your health, when I was some years ago, when I was at a health conference, I met an 85-year-old woman who had this long blonde hair down her back, full set of teeth, radiant look. And we were talking after one of the presenters, and I said, I'm just curious, what is some of your health habits, your health secrets? She looked at me sternly and said, I don't touch sugar. I said, okay, got it. So, sugar, if you want to age quick, that's a good way to do it. I also want to speak briefly to the emotional component. I understand life is stressful, and I understand a quick fix or a nice piece of chocolate is yummy and calms us down. So I think it's really important to look at a holistic view of nourishing our emotional world, nourishing our soul world, nourishing our body in a way that supports health and well-being for the long term. Did I address your question sufficiently, Ruchama? Go ahead, you can unmute.
Yes, I think what you said was very informative. I think that my question was just slightly different, and that was, I was wondering, I have gone off of sugar completely and then allowed myself a little bit like you do on Shabbos, and that caused me to want a little more, and slowly I ended up getting back onto sugar. So would that be an indicator that for me, I'm not a candidate to eating a little bit on Shabbos?
You got it.
Okay.
It's about taking the lead from your body, listening, respecting your needs. And it doesn't, I'll say this, Rucham, it may not be for the rest of your life. You've got to know that. You need to be reprogramming your receptors in your body, your insulin response. There's lots of things that can be done to down regulate that sensitivity. It's important to know. But in the meantime, if this is what's happening, it's almost like, you know, if a person's got a headache and, you know, they just bang their head on the wall, just, you know, once a week, just a little bit, you know, that's going to perpetuate the problem.
Right. Okay. I got my answer. Thank you so much.
Good luck. Okay. You've been waiting patiently. Yvonne, do you still have a question? Yes, I'll take your question. Okay, off you go, yes. Yvonne. Where are you zooming in from, please?
London.
Welcome.
Thank you. I had a few. I didn't know how to sort of send anything to you. I didn't.
Okay, I'm going to ask you because the lateness of the hour.
I know. Wait a minute.
Please choose one. If you don't mind, you can email the others.
I don't know how to. I need to find out. Okay, I'll do the first one then. How much to drink? I'm 9¼ stone, but I have urine retention problems as well. So if I drink too much, I get that problem. So I don't quite know where to go from there. I've been told just to have 2 liters maximum.
I think that's a good start. That's a good start. And I would invite you to look at the urine retention piece because that could be a source for bacterial infection and repeated UTIs with time. So if there is, or kidney issues, it's important if there is an awareness. This is a classic case of, you know, of a health challenge. It's not problematic now, but they don't tend not to get better with time. So it's a good idea to work with a functional medicine doctor or someone to help you with urine retention issues, so that you.
I was checked. I've been checked some months ago, and there was no problem. Excuse me. There was no problem.
Okay.
But I don't quite know how much. So if I have more than 2 liters, is 2 liters enough?
It sounds like for your weight, 2 liters is the right amount for now. Also, it's winter where you are, and it's cold and rainy and drizzly in London, more now than ever. So 2 liters is about right. You're not sweating hot outside.
Okay, can I ask quickly, is goat's milk the same as cow's milk?
The chemical structure of goat's milk is different to cow's milk. It's more akin to human milk. However, it's still being pasteurized and homogenized. So if someone tends to mucus, it's a good thing to press pause on that too.
Okay, the soft cheeses.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Thank you. Okay, any last questions from anybody else before we close for today? You can raise your digital hand by pressing reactions in your Zoom menu or put it in the chat. Okay, if you see me looking over to the side, it's because I've got 2 screens here. I can monitor the chat and you all at the same time. I just want to say thank you very much to each one of you for showing up today. We had, wow, a much longer session. And thank you for those of you who sent in your questions. And like I end off every Mind Body Monday, Mind Body Monday is all about self-care being the heart of healthcare. All you need to do is take one small step towards your advancement of your health in body, mind, and soul. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.